Is that your sponsor?
No.
You're like,
well, they're friends of mine, but yeah.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Hi,
Hi,
Fitted.
Fitted.
Hi, I'm Kathy with a K with Hawaii POV, a talk story series, radio music Hawaii.
Hi.
That's about Jimmy Taco. We used to work together. Was it I-94 or
It was
Hot?
I-94 then. Well, I think when did you start at Queen Street? In the Queen Street, or you started here?
Frederico had hired me to do middays. So it was the wake up crew, then I did the daytime, then Pablo Sato and Big T's in the House.
So that was when we were in Evil A. When we moved from, that was after we had moved to Evil A.
Yeah. I don't know if it was Hot I-94 or Hot 93.9. You know, it's just the different names.
Right. It
had
had changed from I-94 to Hot I-94.
And the call letters don't even exist anymore. KIKI.
Actually, they do, but I think it's somewhere else in the mainland.
Oh, cool.
Somebody else picked up KIKI.
Yeah, I remember when the record reps would come to town and be like, "How's Kiki?" And I'm
Right.
like,
Who's I don't know.
I know.
I don't have no ex-girlfriend named Kiki.
Does she work on the North Shore at that? She work barista. You know? I don't know. Okay, so every so often I do look down just to make sure that everything's recording.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you're talking and I look away, it's not you, Jimmy.
It's not me. Well,
it's really me. It's just me.
we should keep that in there. Those are actually good. Don't edit that out.
We're working. We're
Right?
earning.
Thankfully,
Yeah.
thankfully, Honolulu and Hawaii still employ us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So where are you from originally?
Born in Glendale, like a little suburb of Los Angeles.
Okay.
Grew up in an area called Wilmington, which is in the LA Harbor area. So it's like San Pedro, Long Beach, Carson, Wilmington, Harbor City, that little harbor area right there. Like a Kalihi. You know how we have like the
Working
shipyards
class.
here?
Yeah.
So my father was a welder, and he used to work for a company that built tuna boats.
Was it a union gig?
Yes, it was. It was. Along that lines, he played music and did a bunch of things, and wasn't really like a recording musician. He just had like a lot of friends that he would just jam with and hang out with and party with. So
What's your father's name?
James Gonzalez.
Welding in the day and at night. It's just like flash dance, except without.
I never thought about that. If I would have said that's my dad, he'd be like, he probably would have whipped my ass. Hey, Dad, you like flash dance? You like weld in the day and then you like play music at night.
Maybe that was the inspiration. That was a true story.
Oh my God. Played guitar. His friends were more like playing. They did their thing. And
what kind of music would that be?
they did like California, like folk rock and like just rock and roll.
So it would be like a kind of jam session kind of thing.
Right.
Okay.
I was born in 70. Yeah, dating myself. And then my parents moved to Hawaii when I was 13.
Okay. What was the reason? And what's your mom's name?
My mom's name is Evelyn. So she's like...
That's a great name.
Yeah, it is.
So was it just you? Do you have siblings?
I do have siblings, but my mom got divorced when I was young. And like very, very young, 5, or before 5. I never knew that family, until maybe about 4 or 5 years ago. Like I just got reconnected.
Were you aware of them?
I was always aware. You just go about your life and you don't really know what that other family does, or it's just out of sight, out of mind kind of thing. And they were having a family reunion, and they reached out and said, "Would you like to come?" And I was like, "Yeah, I would really like to come. I'd love to be." But before I just actually what I did was I asked my parents, my mom and my dad, and I was like, "How do you feel?" I thought my dad was going to be upset, and he was like, "I think it's been far long enough. You need to know that family."
Yeah.
And
I got chicken skin. That's great.
And that was super, super dope. Like to go there and to have like this sense of being, it was just like kind of weird. We had this party originally before the reunion at my auntie's house, and my auntie Lori. It was just like amazing where I finally met my sister. I met her kids. And so I have 2 sisters and a brother. One sister lives in Lancaster with her kids. My other sister and brother live in Oklahoma. My paternal father had 3 different marriages, and it's like he jumped from relationship to relationship. My sister was born, I guess, when my mom and my dad were still pregnant, were still married. Life is life.
Yeah.
And things happen. Hey, you know what? When you're an adult, you kind of, you see it.
Yeah.
As a child, you don't. You know what I mean? You want to pick sides because you want your mom and dad. But then when you have a relationship and you understand how crazy it is and how you understand. Yeah.
13, you moved to Ka'u?
Ka'u,
Ka'u on the Big Island.
Ocean
Was there
view.
like a huge ocean view tuna boat welding community that
Not
your
at
dad
all.
just had
Not
to
at all. So,
get with?
kind of backstory before my uncle, David, and my auntie lived here on Oahu in Honolulu. They bought land on the Big Island and built their home. There were these like package deals back then you could buy from Oregon, where they send you the blueprints, they send you all the material in a container, and you have a contractor put it together for you. And my uncle told my dad, hey, it's, X amount of money, an acre of land here is like $7,000. It's just forest.
Oh yeah, there's no sewage,
There's no,
water,
yeah, there's nothing.
electricity,
So you have to bulldoze your lot, make your cinder driveway, you have to make your foundation, get a water catchment.
Oh, bro,
you have to
look at you.
Believe me, I was 13 years old, and I'm like, I don't know shit about building a house, but
Right.
I'm learning every day. Like,
So you and your family actually, they put you to work and it's like,
well, like I helped, so my dad hired a contractor, and my dad had, construction and building knowledge from building, these tuna boats. So he understood construction, how to read blueprints and things like that. So, he's like, I can do this with the help of, a kind of skeleton crew, and I can be the guy to clean up and pick up nails and do this and do that. And that was kind of my job, was to pick up nails or to, hold a board flush to the wall and be like yelled
all
at.
that lingo, yeah.
Right, my dad like yelling at me about things and like, hold it up higher. I'm like above my head and this isn't cool, man. I live in Hawaii. I should be at the beach, which was
so fun.
like where my happy place was back then.
You went to college. Was it University of Hilo or University at Manoa?
Manoa.
Manoa.
Actually, I learned how to DJ a little bit when I was in college.
What were you doing in high school?
I surfed. I played football. I played soccer. I ran track. Ka'u High School on the Big Island. Yeah, go Trojans. I used to ride BMX bikes and, I had a dirt bike, motorcycle, that I'd drive all around.
Kind of jogs your memory, like in the 1970s and the 1980s, kids were active. I mean,
Right.
it was just,
There was no phones.
there was Wonderphone.
There was Wonderphone, and there was a 20-foot cord on the telephone.
Oh yeah, you would hear people yelling in the hallway because they would be walking in the dark and trip over the phone cord.
Right. This would have like either a curled cord stretched to its end, with the door closed, and you're in your room trying to talk to your girl, and your mom's like, "Get off the phone!"
In a minute.
Right.
Don't yell at your mom. Oh,
Or
babe, sorry.
Or then when you finally got a Panasonic cordless phone.
Oh, fancy.
Right.
You pulled the
antenna.
And you had to be so careful with that because
it was so fragile.
Yeah.
I remember
I don't even know if it did anything.
I remember lying down and going and snapping. I was like, oh, I'm gonna get lickings. I broke the phone.
You can get 30 lickings. Get some slaps.
Dad's gonna pull out the antenna. Oh, you broke it. My grades were terrible. There was this program called COP, College Opportunities Program at the UH Manoa. I believe it's still there to this day. And it's a great program where, kids from rural areas or kids that don't have the best grades get an opportunity to prove themselves and go to school. And you go to a summer program where you learn the basics of the university system and what you need to do, and they provide you with room and board. And actually through school, I was always involved in other school activities. I used to be in speech and drama and things like that. And
did you think you were going to be like an extra on what was that, like Magnum PI? I don't know. I don't know what was that back then. I can't.
Jake and the Fat Man. I don't know.
Waikiki 1.
One Waikiki. Yeah. I never really thought about that. I was into theater. I was kind of like a theater geek at one point, because I went from being this stoner surfer kid, that really didn't, and I just wanted to surf, play sports, and then when my grades were falling off, I had two individuals, like my football coach and my English teacher, that stepped up and, kind of got me in gear, got me, you know, my English teacher, Miss Carolyn Irvine, but her and my football coach, Leroy Sims, who left Ka'u to go to Hilo and be athletic director there and football coach there. They both kind of molded me in a good way to see things in a better light. You know, them and my dad's foot, you know, in my ass.
Did you
Help me out.
when you used to surf? How many boards did you have in your quiver?
At the most, at one time, I had 3, but like that was when I lived here in Oahu. Like back home on the Big Island, like I could barely afford
Was it
one.
the shorter?
I had a short board, and then when I got into surfing the North Shore, I had a little bit of a bigger board. Like I'm not that tall of a person. You know, I'm like 5'6", but my biggest board I had at that time was 6'10". My country board, like that was fun to ride on the North Shore back then. Like, yeah.
What were the spots that you would go to?
I loved Ehukai. I loved Haleiwa. I loved Waikiki, you know, just surfing Waikiki.
You don't go surfing anymore?
I have a board. I go maybe once or twice a year. And my back and my shoulders hate me for it.
You got to find the breaks that are closer to the shore.
Oh, believe me, I do. Like last summer, I went out on 4th of July at Ala Moana. And Ala Moana, you know, paddling out at Ala Moana, you know, it's a very, very short paddle. Like, I mean, half of it is a walk and then you paddle. That took me almost an hour to get out.
Wow.
It was still fun to be out there and just to be floating around. I went with another DJ friend of mine, K Smooth, who surfs like every day. I do miss surfing a lot, but I do love what I do. So, yeah, my dad used to surf a lot.
Did he surf all the way up
Until when we moved to the Big Island. He didn't surf as much because he was all about working. He was always into gardening and, you know, the landscaping of our land or doing something else. And yeah, he was always busy. I think that's where I got my work ethic from. It's just like nonstop.
When you would, I guess, go home for the holidays when we worked together at the radio station, and then you'd be talking about like your mom's cooking, and that she also would sell her
Tamales
on the
on the road,
roadside.
right.
How did that happen? And
My parents have always been amazing cooks. My mom especially. Mexican food, Italian food, whatever she's made has been amazing. So a friend of hers told her, like, asked once, I believe, to, you know, if she could buy food, and I think she made, and then someone told her, you know, why don't you guys try and sell. You know, when the sugar mill closed up and my dad wasn't, you know, working on the Big Island, they kind of gravitated to doing that. They did other jobs, but then they started selling food on the side of the road in Ocean View.
Was there a name? Or?
They ended up calling it El Pachuco. They ended up opening a small restaurant, and they ran out 5 years. It was in this place called the Ocean View Outpost, which was like a warehouse of this guy's like just knickknacks that he would sell. Someone taught this guy how to, you know, make tikis. You know, not like he really culturally understood the tikis he was making. And I hate to be that guy, but it was just some white dude that was just making tikis and trying to sell them.
Tchotchkes and...
Right. From my encounters with him. Growing up in Ka'u and not understanding originally when you move there Hawaiian culture, but then being immersed in the culture and family and values. And then my father had a friend who made tikis out of hapu fern, and this was like my dad's drinking buddy. We used to go to his house, and or I'd have to go down and pick up my dad. I'd have to drive down there and pick up my dad, and he would make these tikis out of hapu fern, and he would tell me the symbolism of everything and how important that was, and not to take this for granted. So I saw this other guy's tikis in a different light. What I had learned from Mr. Gomes to seeing what this guy was doing, I asked him, I was like, oh, so what tiki is this? And he's like, oh, I just saw this picture and I know how to carve wood and I'm making this out of that. And I was like, whoa. I love dancing. I was like...
Oh, yeah, you were a dancer. Yeah. Was it a popping?
I popped and, you know, tried my hand at breaking a little bit. I like to dance, and, you know, girls like to dance. So, hey, hi, how you doing?
Yeah.
I started, you know, dancing then in Wilmington, and then moved to the Big Island, and, you know, I was a dude in the back of the bus in the morning with my radio and my bag. You're not supposed to have a radio in school.
Was it the double speaker?
I had like a small.
Cassette?
I had enough. My radio was big enough to fit in my duffel bag because I wanted to hide it. You know, I didn't want to be busted in school or where's that music coming from?
Yeah.
You know, I was always the guy that had all of the music. When
Yeah.
I would get my allowance, would go to either Kokona and I'd buy a tape, or go to Hilo and I would buy tapes. You know what I mean?
Do you remember your first audio cassette or record that you purchased?
I remember the first record I purchased when I was growing up in California. Oingo Boingo, Only a Lad.
Oh,
the
great
album.
track.
I'm sticking to that story. Somebody else, my cousin Anthony tries to check me and say that some Sean Cassidy record was my first record. Nah, bro, that was the second one.
I used to have a crush on Sean Cassidy. It was because of the Hardy Boys.
Right, right. I did have a damn Sean Cassidy record. I remember my first CD was Salt and Pepper, their album, The Cool, Hot, and Vicious, I think is the name of the album, their first album.
Why was it that of all that was it, or
Like,
was that the only
I didn't
CD
even
that
have a
was
CD
available?
player at the time.
Look at you. You're like, I just have to have it. See, this is what starts the DJ obsession of having to have something, playing it once.
I was DJing,
storage.
but I was DJing. Like I had bought that. I had turntables already and records.
Okay.
I didn't have much, but
Were CD players part of the
CD players
arsenal
were,
yet?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Actually, I didn't even buy it. My auntie gave it to me. She sent it to me, and she was like, "This is like the hot album in California. You gotta have this." I was like, "Yeah, I have their Push It, you know, single on vinyl, and yeah." I still do have some of those mixtapes from Jellies.
Do you have like? Oh, really?
Yeah, from back then.
Shut up!
Like the Dre mixtapes.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, the Dre, Rhodium, Swap Meet tapes. I have a bunch of those.
And Billy Craven was the import buyer, and he was also the one who, if somebody had a new mixtape to sell, they would be.
I don't think I ever
to
sold
Billy.
mixtapes. I just sold them directly out of myself. Like the mixtapes that I would make, I would dub myself.
Yeah.
I would make my own covers.
I guess to explain what a mixtape is, because it's kind of an abstract thing.
Right now it is, yeah.
Yeah, but before, because even when I was in high school, I would get a cassette tape of all kinds of different music.
Right.
And that's how I got introduced to like Ultravox and Depeche Mode and Book of Love, and I'm just like thinking of all these kind of like darker alternative rock, New Order, you know.
That was
kind of
emo
Cure.
music before Drake. That was the emo music of our time back then.
Even that, I'm not sure how I acquired these tapes that were a mix of different artists and genres. I mean, there was also, I would hear rap music and rock music.
That was open format before open format,
Yeah.
you know?
But then as far as when the transition in the latter 1980s, 1990s of people actually transitioning a song to song and having beats and scratches and all those kinds of things, that was a specific audience.
Right,
where
there
it was
was
hip-hop music.
There were like hip hop mixtapes that were like production driven, where there would be like, you know, you would take a 4-track recorder or 8-track recorder or whatever, and you would do like you would record one set of beats for however long, and you mix other songs over that for whatever, and back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So the editing process on mixtapes were like crazy.
Yeah.
There are people with their editing skills were like,
because it was live. It's like you would do it live to tape.
you would do it live to tape, do the entire mix,
Yeah.
and then you can come back and play that back without recording over it, and record on another set of tracks,
Oh my gosh.
and record over that, and then go back and then dub in your scratches or dub in vocals or whatever. You know, that's kind of how I got my chops in doing production, you know, and recording and things like that.
Wow.
Was
Was
from
this,
DJing. Yeah, I started out as a mobile DJ, a bedroom DJ to a mobile DJ to doing concerts and events and everything like that. So I started out, I bought my first pair of turntables and mixer from 2 classic places that everybody used to buy a lot of stuff from. My turntables came from a place called Chalks, which was on Yonge Street, which is now Restaurant Yoshi. And then I bought my mixer from Harris in Wahiawa at Choice Cuts, which was a record store, DJ store. Like kind of one of the only ones that catered to DJs and predominantly hip hop DJs.
how did you find out about it?
About Choice Cuts? Kind of like there were a few places. There was Choice Cuts, there was The Beat, and there was Jellies. You know, that was were like the main places that sold vinyl, you know, especially for 12-inch singles, which, you know, DJs love.
Hungry Ear, there's...
Hungry Ear was always around, but it was like, that was Kailua.
And Tower Records.
Tower was great also. Hungry Ear was in Kailua, and for me, anything over the hill was always...
Through the tunnels.
Was too far, even though driving to Wahiawa to Choice Cuts was even further.
Yeah, but it was a straight shot.
Right, and then Choice Cuts, I thought, would always have more of the urban music first because of their proximity to Schofield and the DJs that were there, and, you know, yeah.